Penn State and Iowa have one of the most exciting rivalries in all of college wrestling. And with that comes some crazy WTF moments. So what were some of the best? Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to the Fanco Wrestling YouTube channel, where I talk all about what's going on in the world of wrestling. And this week on Big Ten Tuesday, we're discussing the Penn State and Iowa rivalry that's gone on for quite some time, but it's really ramped up over the past 10 years. If you've been following college wrestling for any time in the past 10 years, you know that these two teams go absolutely wild against each other. Whether you're a fan in the stands or you're actually a wrestler on the mat, I mean, it's just absolutely nuts what these two teams have done. So in the past 10 years, they've really gone back and forth in 9 duels over 10 years. The only time they didn't wrestle was 2 years ago when Penn State and Iowa didn't actually meet up, but there has been some back and forth throughout that time. The only time there hasn't been is Iowa had 2 wins in a row in 2010, 2011, and then Penn State had wins in a row in 2017 and 2018. But for the most part, it has gone back and forth and have been some pretty darn close duels. So what am I talking about when I talk WTF moments? What does that even mean? It means there are some wild moments that happen, whether it's a crazy upset, a big pin, or just something unexpected that happened during each match, during a duel. And there have been quite a few of these. Now, just looking at a few that I'm not even going to in the top 5 is Ramos. I mean, remember when Ramos had that huge fall and then he flexed on everybody at Penn State in 2013? Gilman and Suriano, that was a wild match as well. And also the Jimmy Gulabon winning over Corey Clark in 2015. Just some crazy honorable mentions right off the bat, some exciting matches, but none of them made my top 5, my Fanco 5. So what were some of these events, some of these big WTF moments that were in the top 5? Well, starting out at number 5, in 2017, Bo Nickel and Sammy Brooks wrestled. Now, coming into that match, was pretty exciting. Was Mark Hall actually made his debut that night in Carver Hawkeye Arena against Alex Meyer. Unfortunately, he lost that match and lost some momentum in the duel. So the duel score was 12-11. Penn State was winning, but it was sure close. I mean, this was one of the closest matches in quite some time, closest duels in quite some time. Bo Nickel came onto the mat, walked onto the mat at 184 against number 5 Sammy Brooks, who was 16-1 at the time. Bo Nickel was actually undefeated at the time, 11-0, and Bo Nickel just made quick work of the match. He ended up pinning Sammy Brooks within 38 seconds. I mean, this was absolutely wild. Brooks was able to get in on an attack, but Bo Nickel just worked straight for the spladle, ended up taking him right over to his back, and ended up getting off the mat and taunting the crowd, saying, "I can't hear you now," because, of course, they were all booing Bo Nickel and just not saying anything after that match. There was completely unexpected win. I mean, not necessarily unexpected win, but at least an unexpected pin that ended up putting them up in the duel and ended up actually really helping them out. Penn State won the duel 26-11. So coming up from a close duel score off of Mark Hall's match to a 26-11 final victory. Number 4 came from a recent victory in the duel of 2020. The 2020 duel, Michael Kemmer against Mark Hall. What a duel that was between those two. So speaking of Mark Hall, of course, I did just say that he was in the previous duel, made his debut in Carver Hawkeye, and he came back to Carver Hawkeye in 2020. And he hasn't had quite so much luck, unfortunately, in Carver Hawkeye. But Penn State was entering as the number 2 team. If you remember this, I mean, this was just absurd. And they hadn't lost to Iowa since 2015. And these two teams were just stacked with talent. I think they had like maybe 7 number 1 or number 2 guys, like around that in each lineup. Like there were so many of these guys. Kemmer was undefeated, bumping up to 174 from previously wrestling 157. Mark Hall was also undefeated, and nobody really expected Michael Kemmer to do much this match. I mean, they expected Mark Hall to get the win, but what happened here is Mark Hall was able to come out big And Marco, he came out after a Vincenzo win, after Vincenzo just won big match over Marinelli. Came out a little bit overzealous, tossed Michael Kemmerer, but Kemmerer ends up rolling through, coming out behind for a takedown. And then in the second period, Mark Hall fires back, gets a takedown. But at that point, it was kind of Kemmerer's match from there on out. Kemmerer just became too much for Mark Hall. Ended up getting a reversal, getting 2 takedowns in the final 2 periods to end up winning 11-6. I mean, in this match, he didn't just win. He didn't just win a squeaker. He took it to Mark Hall, and nobody was expecting that. Now, Iowa did end up winning the duel, which, I mean, this was an instrumental match. It's such an important match in Iowa beating Penn State in 2020. 19-17 was the final. Now, Mark Hall did end up getting the match back at the Big Ten Championships when he won the Big Ten Championship over Michael Kemmerer in 2020. And number 3, 2010, Brent Metcalf and Frank Molinaro. Do you remember this one? This was another big pin. A pin that came in 3 minutes and 56 seconds by Brent Metcalf. Now, Metcalf at the time was coming into this match undefeated, 22-0. Frank Molinaro, 22-2. And you may know that Penn State wasn't necessarily a big powerhouse at the time. I mean, coming off of a couple years, Kel Sanderson's just coming in, newer to the program, wasn't necessarily a huge powerhouse, but they were really building up to do something great that year. Metcalf came out big. He was winning 12-2 in this match. And whenever he was up 12-2, Molinaro did end up shooting back and getting a takedown. But at the end, Metcalf just came in with the double unders, drove straight through on Molinaro, threw him to his back, and pinned him in a crazy pin that ended up being Metcalf's 95th career win, and earned Iowa the victory with a 29-6 win. I mean, a crushing victory for the Iowa Hawkeyes in 2010. And that was just a big duel overall. I mean, there were some big upsets on both sides. Adam Lynch was able to beat Montel Marion in a sudden victory match. Jake Kerr defeated Kyler Sanderson of Penn State in a ranked Kyler Sanderson. I mean, this was such an exciting duel meet. I remember watching these whenever I was younger, 10 years younger at the time. What a great duel that was in a big WTF unexpected moment. People expected Metcalf to get the win, but to pin Frank Molinaro was, wow, that was not expected. And another thing that was unexpected in pretty much every single duel meet in the last couple of years is Alex Marinelli and Vincenzo Joseph. So there are a couple of things that go here with these two because they've wrestled quite a bit of times. I mean, this rivalry it really rivals the Penn State-Iowa rivalry. It goes hand in hand with that in the past couple of years between these two guys. The first time they met up in 2018, Marinelli was number 7 in the country. Vincenzo Joseph was the number 1 seed, coming off of an NCAA championship over Isaiah Martinez. And Marinelli was just coming in as the freshman. Both of these guys were undefeated, though. Marinelli was a tough wrestler. And at this point, whenever they were wrestling, Vincenzo was actually up 5-3. He was up 5-3 in the match whenever Marinelli got the underhooks, got in on the bear hug, and threw Vincenzo straight to his back, hit a 6-point move with just a minute left in the third period. Now, Vincenzo was able to get off his back and escape, but ultimately wasn't able to do anything. Marinelli just took a stall call and ended up winning the match 9-6, with Vincenzo still attacking, but ultimately not able to do anything in the period. And then, of course, we know that another big duel happened in 2020 between these two guys when Vincenzo actually earned his first victory over Alex Marinelli. I mean, this whole match, everybody was just expecting something crazy going to happen. They kept going upper body with each other. We knew somebody was getting thrown. Wasn't sure whether it was going to be Marinelli or Cenzo, but Vincenzo ended up tossing Marinelli to his back, almost pinned him in a 6-point move that ended up getting him the victory. Now, Marinelli was able to pop up and get a reversal, and actually he almost got some back points on Vincenzo Joseph himself, but ultimately Marinelli did get the final takedown, but he lost 7-5 Now, he's somebody who did end up getting that duel back, similar to the Hall and Kemmer situation. Marinelli was the one who ultimately got the victory in the Big Ten championships, and it was actually the final match in Vincenzo Joseph's career. And what a match to end on with that rivalry. So what is the number one most unexpected, most crazy WTF moment that has happened between Penn State and Iowa rivalries in the past 10 years? It's not just one match. It's actually a whole duel. And yeah, maybe you say the 2020 duel because Iowa ended up coming and winning that kind of unexpectedly. But I say there's one duel that's kind of crazier. And to me, that's 2011. The 2011 duel between these two teams. Number 8 Iowa beat number 1 Penn State 22-13. Now, honestly, this does rival last year's duel, the 2020 duel with Penn State and Iowa. It was a sold-out Rec Hall crowd. The Hawkeyes had a recent 2010 win over Penn State and coming off reigning NCAA champions. They actually were riding a 73-match win streak at the time. Penn State was undefeated, 13-0. Iowa was 10-1 with just a tie, actually, on the season. Ended up finishing the season undefeated, too. And this was crazy. What is so crazy about the match? Well, what happened is McDonough came out, started the match strong with a big fall. Started out with a big pin. Then was followed up by number 10, Tony Ramos, defeating number 5, Andrew Long, pulling off a big upset. So I was just riding momentum at the time. An unranked Montel Marion, the junior at the time, defeated number 5, Andrew Alton. So, I mean, the Hawkeyes are just going wild. And Marion actually came back after almost being pinned by Andrew Alton. So that was kind of crazy. And then we have to talk about Frank Molinaro and David Taylor. They started coming back, got Penn State on the board. And then Ed Ruth got a big win over Ethan Lofthouse, but ultimately that wasn't enough because at 184 pounds, Grant Gambrell defeated Quentin Wright, another big upset, and Luke Lofthouse at 197 majored Justin Ortega. And they put it away before heavyweight even happened. The reason this was so crazy is Iowa was not expected to win. Number 8 in the country. Although they're riding the 73-match win streak, Penn State was the favorites on paper, and Iowa just found a way in Rec Hall, nonetheless, to win the duel. The final was 22-13. Now, Penn State ended up returning the favor the following year, winning 22-12, a very close score to the year before. And then Penn State actually that year in the 2011 season ended up winning the NCAA championships, where the Hawkeyes finished third. What is your favorite Penn State and Iowa moment between this rivalry that's been going on for so long? I'm sure I've missed a couple of moments that you're going to get on me in the comments below. Like, Josiah, how did you miss this crazy WTF moment that happened? There have just been so many and so many great moments between these two teams.